do marketing well. Mike, I'll let you to introduce yourself and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. So, yeah, let me introduce myself. My name is Michael Moreno. I've been in sales and marketing for about 15 years now. If you add time before that, like undergrad and stuff, it's probably nearly 20 years of being in the sales and marketing space. So I spent 10 years of that working at Intel, where I've done everything from field marketing to partner marketing to product marketing to competitive marketing, focused on high performance computing. And then most recently I finished up working at Cloudera, a big data platform company in Palo Alto, where I've done my fair share of partner marketing as well as digital marketing focused on social media. So that's a bit about me. My goal for today is, I'm going to start with a few assumptions here. So let's assume that you have a product. You generally know to some level of confidence that there is a need for that product that's solving something. Okay, so we'll start there, and then we'll build from there. And so there's definitely be some time for Q&A at the end if you have more specific questions that I could probably most likely answer on product marketing, partnerships, as well as social media and digital marketing. So with no further ado, could we go forward? So I just want to have this little joke. It's a little dangerous, but what do religion and paid search advertisers have in common? They really want people to convert. So if you understand that, obviously you shouldn't do religious jokes, but here I'm going at it. But I mean, obviously converting your leads, your opportunities to revenue is the end goal. And I'll mention the end goal as we go along. So let's move on forward. So you guys are startups, you have a challenging business. I have a side hustle of my own, and I understand every day how difficult it is to get new customers, to get people interested, to get awareness. And so marketing plays a critical role in doing this. And as you can see, number one, no market need. So first of all, you definitely need to know that there's a need, and there's a bunch of people out there, whatever number. It could be one, but there's more, hopefully more than one, who actually want to buy what you're making. Again, part of that is the market research that goes into defining that piece of marketing. Further down the line, you'll see poor marketing, 14%. So obviously, that's what we don't want to do. We want to make sure that we engage people. We want to make sure we build a following, make sure we build an audience, and we nurture those leads and potential customers along the way. So we'll go on. So I imagine a lot of you feel like this. You're spinning plates. I mean, you have your product management, you have your coding, you have your marketing, you have your sales, you're training people, you're working with partnerships, and you're trying to get it all to stay, all the plates to stay up. And that's a challenge, but marketing can actually help you do that. So what I'm going to talk about is, how do we get to these people? How do we keep the plates of marketing in the air? And so there's three questions that I have here is, where are your prospects and customers? So I'll mention this pretty much throughout the rest of the presentation, is understanding where they are, where they reside. So it could be outside of this building. It could be online on, they're always Googling. Or it could be they're always on social media. It could be by phone. You need to understand where they are and how you can get their attention. So then you need to think about, how can you find them online? And then how are you engaging them? What is the message that you're saying to them? I recently wrote a blog, and I like the analogy of being a single guy in your 20s and you need to go up to that girl who you see her across the room, you're nervous, you need to go up and say, hey, what's your number, or would you like to go on a date sometime, but the words don't come out. So first of all is one, understanding your audience, and then being able to communicate effectively to that audience. So defining your audience is what it's all about. Understanding the buyer personas that you're going after is where it all begins. You could be an owner, you've launched a new business, you're stressed out, you're doing a bit of everything, You're looking for quick solutions that your team members can implement, and you're challenged by time. If that's one of the personas you're going after, you need to understand these constraints and opportunities and challenges. And we can go down the line. If you're an individual contributor, let's say you're a programmer, you're focused on building functional code, you're worried about hitting timelines, product timelines, you're looking to optimize how you code, and you're looking for solutions that allow you to be successful. How does the programmer come and find some of those solutions? It could be on Twitter. I mean, this person could be, following the right, somebody innovated on new SDKs or new APIs, and they find it on Twitter. And hopefully, if you're the one selling that new API optimization tool or that new coding tool, you better well be on that platform making a case for yourself. So there are various personas that you need to think about, and how you communicate to them is what's going to determine your long-term success as a company. So what I like to talk about is beginning with the end in mind. So the end obviously is to create revenue, to make the sale. And if you have a company, if you already made sales, you already have an example of success, and you can replicate that success. But if you don't, let's say you just don't have enough data to really make a marketing strategy that has much meat. Maybe you've sold to one of those personas on the last slide, but you need to sell to 2 other personas, or you need to influence 2 other personas and then the CEO. So that is the true end, is understanding those people who are going to play a part in making the sale, in completing the sale. And in many cases, there are companies where your sales team will need to hit various people along the way to be able to create the right amount of influence at the right time to get that main buyer persona who has budget and authority to buy your product. So these are things that you need to think about and how you go get them. So obviously the initial contact, building leads, and I can talk to you guys in Q&A if you want about that. I've done social media. I understand what it is to build that initial awareness. But even with platforms like social media, you can influence along the way, and you can target along the way. And when you add advertising to the mix, you can target today with Facebook very, very succinctly, very, very direct, and have results. So keep on. So the end is the beginning, or the new beginning. So closing sales, like I talked about, is the key. But do not lose focus of these different pieces of the puzzle. I mean, the full sales funnel, and it's not displayed as a sales funnel, but the sales funnel has many different steps that you need to take into account. And from broad-based awareness to the qualification process to presentations, and then when you get down to this area is where your sales team needs to be awake. They need to be focused. And what's interesting, and I was talking to somebody earlier about this, and I was reading recently about sales enablement and how the role of sales enablement in many companies has completely changed. 5-10 years ago, the salesperson was going into a company and training the audience, training the potential customer or prospect on the product. Today, that rarely happens unless you have something that's uber complex. What's happening today is most of your customers, in many cases, know more than what your salesperson's going to know, because they've done all the research. They're passionate about the technology. They're passionate about the product. And so by the time you get to that evaluation stage, your salesperson better be really good at relationship building, because a lot of it, and they need to be knowledgeable enough to maintain that level of relationship. Because when you get all through these first 4 stages, this is the area of marketing. That end stage is really where your salespeople are. But the interesting thing about sales enablement today is that salespeople are starting to use tools that marketers use. They're starting to use social media to influence and engage with end customers. They're starting to use email marketing to engage with customers. It's not just the role of the marketer, they're having to adopt marketing tactics to progress those sales at the end of the funnel. So keep that in mind as you guys go developing your startups and how you want to progress leads, progress opportunities, that a lot of the work that's going to happen here is really on the what would be considered the role of the marketer. So I'm throwing this up here. It's a methodology, a marketing methodology. It's very popular. It's called the Pragmatic Marketing Framework. It's pretty, there's a lot on here, but let me just boil it down. It gets back to what I was talking about with the end in mind. So with the end in mind, you could consider actually the end here is the programs piece. Is that where you see the launch the plan and then the sales process readiness? That's really that end of the funnel. And that end part there is you get to a point where now you have the customer, those last two columns at the end, where you're in that mode of trying to get them to refresh and renew and continue to use your product. But there's these areas of market definition that is more of a, more of that phase of the research that needs to be done. Then there's the actual product roadmap, which could be managed by your product managers or actual engineers in developing the product. And then you get to the space which is pretty much owned by your marketing team, where you have positioning, buying process, buying personas, user personas. It's where you're really looking at where your product fits in the market. How is your product relative to the competition? Making programs that are effective and allow you to engage with those potential customers. And then you go into building the launch plan, or making a launch plan for an actual new product launch, or maybe a new feature launch that addresses those customer needs. So if you have time, I suggest you take a look at Pragmatic Marketing online. I'm not going to go deep into this, but there's definitely some thought methodologies you should think about, that this really kind of shows all the different things that most people in the marketing space should have in mind. So I'm going to talk about my story. So last year in 2018, I took the role of Senior Digital Marketing Manager focused on social media for Cloudera. And the first thing I did was define what the major challenges were with social media in the company. I knew the predecessor, she did good work, but what I found was for a company that was focused on a big data platform, a new machine learning SDK, data warehousing, and we just rebranded from Apache Impala, which is an open source basically data warehouse database, scalable database, to the Cloudera data warehouse, to what else? IoT, to these 3 customer journey segments of grow, connect, and protect. We were just sending out tweets and posts on social media any odd time, ad hoc, like just Wild West. And so if you just landed into Cloudera's Twitter feed on any given day, you'd be like, what's this company about? Like, let's just assume you're a new computer scientist and you're just learning about data, and this company, you're like looking at their Twitter posts just to get some information. You're like, what do they do? I don't know what they do. Unless you went to the website. In the website, you're going to get all the kind of high-level messaging, and you're still be like, let me go to a wiki, So what I did was, like, I took a step back and I said, okay, who are the personas? Who are we trying to reach? And at the time, we'd made a hard shift with the new CMO from focusing more, I would say, 60% non-technical to 40% technical, probably more closer to 80-20 or even 90-10. Very buyer persona focused. We're going to target C-level executives, directors with budget who can buy. And we're going to have a story that talks about how we solve the business challenges with our data platform. And so I had to think, like, okay, how am I going to do this? Before, we didn't really think much of buyer personas. I'm going to start with the end in mind. Who are we trying to target, and what matters to them? And so what I did was I decided, instead of doing ad hoc, let's treat certain days of the week with a certain theme. So I made Machine Learning Mondays, Big Data Tuesday, Thursdays, Data Analytic Wednesdays, and you could call it Hodgepodge Friday, which is Grow, Connect, Protect. So grow your business, which is like Customer 360, Connect is IoT, and Protect is cybersecurity. And I would cycle those through. but each day had a similar format. So I would do awareness building in the morning. So what do so many people do before the internet? When they wake up and they get a cup of coffee, they go look at the newspaper. They want to know what's going on in the world. If you're in business, you want to read the Wall Street Journal. You want to know what's happening in business. So the first thing I do is I'm dropping probably about 2 news articles from reputable sites on that topic of the day. Middle of the day, I'm looking at consideration. That middle of the funnel, like what could I put out there that gives the Cloudera branding, that creates that context that's related to what I sent out in the morning. So I'd send something out that might be an old article referencing Cloudera, or would be a blog that we had posted previously. And then in the evening, think about it's 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. depending where you're at. You just got home, you decided to look on your phone to see what's coming in Twitter, or LinkedIn for that matter, and you see, oh, hey, more information on that same topic for the day that goes to a webinar, goes to an ebook. And what happened over that course of last year were dramatic results. I actually 3x'd the social engagement. So social engagement is likes, clicks, shares, comments. 3x year-on-year change. And we were able to increase, actually create revenue on organic social media. This is not the paid piece. It's not me boosting posts. I actually drive $200,000 in revenue off of social media. So these are things, when you think with the end in mind, on a relatively new, because social media isn't that old, like email marketing, I'm driving numbers off of something that's purely organic just by creating a strategy that is intuitive and allows people to understand what you're communicating. So keep going. So let's think about the goals. So this is where it all begins, is set your goals. If you're an early stage startup and you're in stealth mode, you might just need some contextual brand awareness. I mean, everybody here is going to have a different reason for using marketing. But you may be in a position where you're just like, you know what, I just want people to know my brand at this point. I don't want to elaborate much, but I do want to create that affinity to my brand so they have some context that when I launch publicly my product, I'm not starting from scratch. So you may be in that stage. You have a question?
I thought it'd be a really good time for a question that's always plagued me, and that is that people tell me, don't publish a website until it's ready to go. And you're kind of saying, maybe go around that and create some awareness before you're absolutely ready.
I've seen, talking more towards early stage startups where you're maybe in stealth mode, I've seen a lot of them in stealth mode that's very limited, almost a landing page with some initial branding and some basic commentary. What I would envision would let you want to take it a slight step further, right? Maybe you want to collect some contacts, right? You just have a landing page, nice branding, and then maybe Twitter is just your one-stop shop depending on your audience. And you're just referencing news articles that are public, that are contextual to your business. And maybe every occasional Friday you're dropping something that's like, hey, contact us. We're in stealth mode, but we're welcome to have a phone conversation with you depending on whatever. So I think there are certain scenarios like that could play out in your favor. That's low overhead, but then at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to wait 6 months to say anything or create any context. At least there's a heartbeat there that you can then build off of once you get to the point where you're ready to launch. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Then the next part, so leads. This is huge for most everybody. This is where it all begins. But the fact of what I was talking about buyer personas is so critical, and I'll tell you more. Because the last thing you want are to create lots of leads from whatever marketing channel you use, email marketing, social, you pick it, any number of events. You don't want to create leads that are one, just horrible, that you give them to a salesperson and they're like, they don't care about our product. That's when you've done a poor job at creating a buyer persona that matters. So we'll talk more about that. You may just be looking to create pipeline. So this could be as simple as, I'm just really trying to build up the pipeline for sales, and there's a different set of strategies that go there. And then lastly, it could be sales. You could be at a stage in your development, you have a product, you have this amazing ebook that creates tremendous value for anybody who downloads it. You create a ClickFunnels page, or a page where you can just download that content and capture their data, and then quickly almost sell them right there directly online. You may have a product like that where it's just simple, transactional. I just have the site, I just need to use email marketing, use social media marketing, use advertising, and drive them to that one site, and you're going to be closing them every day on that one page. So there are different strategies you need to think about and set those goals accordingly. So I love this quote. So our jobs as marketers are to understand how the customer wants to buy and help them do so. So those 4 examples of goals are really different ways of engaging customers. But the key to this is really helping them to buy. And the way I like to put it is, it's all about time. So you know there's a need for your product and market. There's somebody out there who wants it. You're trying to connect them faster than any other option to what they need. And you're trying to get their money faster so that you can continue to persist and can continue to invest. It's really about time and shortening that that cycle of value, giving value between 2 people. And so that's why I put that quote there. And so we'll build on that. And so let's get into this buyer persona stuff and crafting the message. So I love this. You can Google this. You'll see tons of different examples on how to build a buyer persona. It doesn't have to be visual like this. It could be as simple as an Excel where you're capturing all the main points on what they do and what they're interested in. But it's all about demographics. So the example I love to bring up on demographics, there are 2 examples from my previous job. One, I had a manager who never did social media. So slightly older, she turned to me, and I'm trying to think 3 years ahead of us. I'm like, we need to start doing more on Instagram because it's a popular platform, and 2 to 3 years from now, with millennials or younger than millennials, that's where they may be still living in mass, and those people may not be using Facebook, or Facebook could totally change, and it has. So you need to be thinking at that level, like, where are the millennials? And she was like, oh, we're not targeting millennials. And I was like, okay, wait, let me Google that. Millennials, age 26 to 36. Let me go look at my Twitter analytics to see who's following Cloudera right now. Oh, the highest bar of those people in that range are 26 to 36. Whoa, what a surprise. So, and then the flip side of it is Facebook. Like, how many C-level execs who are buyer personas who have budget and authority to go buy your product are checking up on their grandkids on Facebook? And we're not putting the right content to go target those C-level execs that we want to entertain? So these are things that when you build these personas can influence your route to market. And so like you want to know their motivations, their goals, their frustrations that you're trying to solve. And the more research you can do in this phase, the better results you're going to have in defining the tone of voice that you're going to use with them. So the last thing you want to do is going after an older individual and start using a young 20-year-old's language to go address him in a Twitter post or an email blast. So focus on the tone and having the right tone. Do you address their challenges? And this is key. I mean, it's all about you've already done it for the product, but you still need to keep circling back and seeing, okay, have their needs changed? Are there competitive solutions on the market that I haven't taken into consideration yet that I need to in communicating to them, because they might come back to my sales guy and say, you know what, you don't have that thing. And then you don't have a story, you don't know what to tell them to address those challenges that you now have because the competition came with a new piece of functionality. And then lastly, are you speaking their language? So there's a lot of work that was done at Cloudera the last couple of years with our new CMO, which is focused on having a certain type of communication, a very sharp, witty tone. You may want to think about your brand, but then you also, if you're thinking about writing a certain way, you need to think about the audience again and make sure that you're not overly sarcastic in how you communicate in email or in social media posts. You want to make sure that what you're saying fits the audience and doesn't turn them away. And so I pulled this together. I found this online, some top priorities for B2C content creators. And as you'll notice, creating more engaging content is number one. And what I would add on to that right now, I listen to a variety of podcasts. I'll give you some podcasts that I listen to if you guys are interested. But personalization right now is huge. I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to me and I'm looking at my inbox and I'll see spam in there, and some of it as a marketer will be related to marketing things that I'm interested in. I may or may not click, but I would say probably 80–90% of the time I don't click through. But I am looking for something that can help me, market better. Or as a programmer, I imagine somebody's looking for something that helps them program better. Or as an executive leader, you're looking for something that allows you to manage people and lead people better than you did the year before. So I think really getting the value out there is key. I find that a lot of what I've seen over the last few years has been giving free value. And you'll see a lot of companies out there just giving away free information. Like, how can I help that mid-level manager do their job better? I have a product that can help them, but why don't I give them 5 tips in a blog and give away that information for free, just so I can win that affinity? And I think when you start building affinity, and I could go into this in Q&A in greater detail, pays off over time because you're giving value. I'll give a good example. One good example of this was moving into the social media role. I found this, I think I clicked on it. It was actual piece of spam. It was this company called Socito. And these 2 guys, real simple strategy. They just set up their webcam and just sat there, the 2 of them, talking, like whiteboarding the web analytics, the Twitter analytics that they got from different A/B testing that they did. And it was just fascinating because these guys are just talking about social media at a data level and what worked and what didn't and how they were thinking through the process. And I thought like that content was like gold. They eventually got bought out and then they disappeared, but I was like, if anything, they're just giving me free value. Like nearly every week or every day they would have these videos. And they also had some awesome sets of ebooks that backed it up. So they provided you with some good guidelines on what you could do in social media, specifically B2B marketing, which is where I was at. So think about those things with your own business, is that it could be simple as doing a daily, live stream on Facebook where you're explaining your process, and then with that you're really engaging people over time and keeping that context. So engaging at the right place, I'm really big on this. I just feel it's very analogous to it's just being at the right place at the right time. So many people discount this, but what's interesting, and most of you, if you guys have web pages already, at least 50% of the web traffic that comes to like my side hustle and our customers' site is through smartphone. And if you're not playing well, one, if you don't have a website that's mobile enabled, come on, you got to do that first thing in the morning. But then it's the social media, it's the email. You do need to cover all your bases, but the one thing I want to leave with you though is that if you know those buyer personas extremely well, you can optimize where you put your time. You can do A/B testing and determine, okay, which of these routes to market, these marketing channels works best, and then over-index in the one that works the best for you. So don't think that, okay, you're a one-man or one-woman show, or maybe you have just a handful of contractors working for you. Use the Pareto principle, focus on, the 20% that gets you 80% of the results, of course. But think about that as routes to market. You may be able to go all in on mobile, and that could be a social media strategy with email, and you just have those messages nailed down, focusing on the contacts that you have that fit the right buyer personas. So if you do something as simple as that could be hugely successful. So mapping out the strategy, of course, just elaborating more on what I was just saying. You need to look at all of these routes to market. All of them are valid, but again, the Pareto principle is the key here to optimizing the one that works the best for your audience. So don't discount SEO just because it's always changing. Don't discount having a strong website that's mobile enabled. Don't discount creating actual PDFs, sales collateral that you may need to give out at an event. Keep all these things in mind and understand obviously what your budget needs are for what you're trying to accomplish, be it awareness, lead creation, pipeline, or sales. And use the marketing tactics that fit into the greater strategy that give you the best results. Be flexible. This is another one. 5-10 years ago, would you have ever thought you'd be investing so much money into Google ads and Facebook ads? I think the majority of us would probably say no. Especially Facebook. I know people in the last job who are just still skeptical about social media, and they're managers in marketing. And they're managers in sales, still skeptical about social media. Yet there was a news article that came out recently with ad spend and Facebook just continually to just climb higher. So keep that in mind though, that things change quick. YouTube's popular today, but something could come along that's just more interesting, and 5 years from now it's totally different. So focus on those. That's why this conversation is focused so much on personas and knowing where to hit those personas, because all these things could change. But if you have the right strategy, you've defined those people correctly, this can play out over the long haul, regardless of what route to market you choose. And so, adding on to those older managers who are skeptical about social media, I thought this was interesting. This breaks down the demographics. It's a little hard to read, but you see Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And you'll see, based on sex, age range. Let's see, age range. Look at 50 to 64, like I was saying earlier, pretty high. But then Instagram is pretty low. So these are things like if you're putting together that strategy and you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to use social media. Where do I put my bets? And based on ethnicity, education, dependent upon who you're going after, think about these things. The data's out there. Just do your research before choosing the platform. Be found or be lost. So here are some tips. I'm almost done here. Some tips to think about. Create an outline of your top 5 and 10 buyer personas. This is what I want you guys to walk away with today. Just pick 5 potential people. It could be an influencer, so it could be a technical decision maker who doesn't have the budget and authority to go buy the software, but is hugely important in making the case to the buyer persona at the company you're going after. Think of 5 people at least that you can go define. Could be in Excel, could be using a template like this, but define where they go, what they like, get those demographic details and pull it together. Then identify where they hang out. Understand, once you get that data, those 5 personas, think about, okay, where are they most likely to be? Go give them a call if you know somebody like that. Figure out where they spend their time, and then optimize your marketing strategy for that. Then build content based on what you know about those personas. Think through what the tone of voice you should have, how they want to be engaged. Would they like a phone call rather than an email? We're all very busy people. Maybe even a text message. Texting right now is huge, being able to get through all the noise. Obviously, there's some legal things you need to look at, but understanding how's the best way to get the data to them so you can shorten that cycle of them waiting to solve certain challenges. You can help them solve challenges sooner. And then know which personas to exclude. So I say exclude. So you got 5 that 5 or 10 that you need to go after, but there are going to be some people you just don't want to talk to. You don't want your salespeople to spend time. I recently interviewed at a company, and I was kind of testing them out because I called their inside sales number, and I was like, okay, let's see how these guys work. And I got on a call with them, and because I'm interviewing, I didn't give away much information. And I was like, I'm an agency, you know, I'm interested in your software. It's like, okay, so how big is your customer that you're selling to? I'm like, they're so big, but I really can't tell you much about them. It's private. And they're like, look, we can't spend time with you without knowing more about your end customer. And I thought that was great. It was great because the salesperson knew enough not to waste time on this opportunity. So keep that in mind. You want to optimize the time of your salespeople, and there are people you need to exclude. So getting to resources, I'll share the content with Helena to send out to the team. I have a few links here that you can click on. HubSpot, great resource for one of those buyer persona templates. YouTube video on how to create buyer personas. It's like 3 minutes long, so it's not too much out of your day. And then how digital marketing is changing in 2019. This is a Neil Patel video. He's a hugely popular digital marketer. Definitely check it out. He has tons of resources if you're trying to understand the space of digital marketing even better. You're welcome to check that out. So the benefits of all this, like I said earlier, shorter sales cycle, increased awareness, and happy customers. Who doesn't want to solve their problems sooner? And then what startup owner doesn't want to have more money in their pocket sooner? So those are the benefits of all this. And I'm leaving this with you, a quote I found online. Before you create any more great content, figure out how you're going to market it first. So make the plans, understand those potential customers, and then start looking at all the things you can do the research on your own, on social media, digital marketing, SEO, you name it. So I just wanted you guys to walk away with that. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the time. I know everybody's busy. Feel free to reach out to me. My phone number, my email address from the agency that I'm a co-founder of, Blair Allen Agency. And I'm open for questions if we have time.
When you hear the question, repeat it so everyone can hear it.
Can you talk a little bit about Blair Allen and what it provides in terms of services?
So we're pretty much a full service digital marketing agency. We can be your virtual CMO. We can create a WordPress site. We have SEO services, social media, advertising. For one of our customers, we actually created an API that allows us to scale dropping a blog not only on the main site, but having that disseminated across other employee sites and also populate Facebook. So we have a variety of services that we offer, and feel free to reach out to me.
San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm based here. I'm
Okay.
focused on the Bay Area. My CEO, however, though, lives in South Dakota. He also used to work at Cloudera.
How does advertising on Facebook work?
So Facebook advertising.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So Facebook. The question is, how does Facebook advertising work? So Facebook advertising is pretty straightforward. One of the easiest ways is you post on Facebook, make a Facebook post, and you can boost it. So the best strategy is if you're making multiple posts, you can see which one gets the most likes, the most social engagement. And you make a determination, okay, I know this one performs really well, I'll boost it, has a link to my website, and you can start creating potential leads.
How do people find what you posted on Facebook? And to me, Facebook is old girlfriend from high school says hi, I say hi back.
So
You can target.
yeah, you can target. So these would come across as ads. So when you boost it, it basically converts it to an ad. And then it will give you details on what demographics you want to go after. You can specialize and edit the demographics you pick, or you can allow Facebook to go ahead and give optimized potential results based on their algorithms. So for our customer, they're very much focused on one city, their mortgage brokerage. It's easy for me to just define an age range of potential home buyers in that city. And it's pretty simple. But if you have a product that's more complex than that, that's a certain demographic, like certain age range, certain education level, you can choose all those attributes.
Who else has a question? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
So I'm making the venture into AI influencers for marketing, and wondering what's your opinion on that or background? Or
Yeah. So the question is about influencers in the AI space. So great question. Last year I was looking at one, oh God, I'm forgetting his name. Anyways, there's this one guy, I mean, afterwards I'll find it online. I follow him on YouTube. It's great. I mean, you need to find, the problem is how much it costs, like what your budget is. If you find somebody who, let's say, is a lower level influencer, mid-level influencer, and you know they're going to pop, build those relationships. So the way I look at influencers is the same way I look at analyst relations and press relations. It's all about the relationship. It's all about building that affinity with those people up front. Because a lot of times if you just come in and say, I really need you to be my influencer because I'm launching this product, a lot of them, especially the good ones, are going to ask for money. So usually what I've found work best is you start over a period of time, give it at least a quarter. You start following them, you start sharing their content, you start making comments on their content, you start liking what they do, you start promoting them and calling them out. Then that conversation, when it gets to the point of I need to use you as an influencer, is way easier. I did that at Cloudera a couple times, and unfortunately we didn't have budget, so I wasn't able to launch things. But there was one in particular. He covered us. He covered one of our CTOs at a Strata Data conference in San Jose, and I was able to come back to him, and it was basically that reciprocity. Like, you know, I'm following you, I'm scratching your back. Could you do a video with this other exec, you know, at our next conference? Oh yeah, sure. And so you build those things. The other good strategy in dealing with influencers is if you have a way to bring them into something that you're doing. So one is obviously if you had a podcast or you had like a live video stream, you built the relationship and you can bring them on, then they're getting instant value up front, and then it's a lot easier for them to pull you. Things like that tend to work best because they're looking for getting as much visibility, especially the smaller or mid-tier influencers.
I guess what I was talking about was like the AI bots that are attract followers themselves. That's what I'm working on.
Oh, okay. So my view on that being in social media is I've used bots. They're helpful. I've used the follow you back thing in Twitter. I mean, I've built some followers, but you know, a lot of them aren't quality followers. So depending on how the technology is, it can be good because there's a definite need in the market for companies, especially new companies, to quickly build their follower count because that's when they can start monetizing ads. But the flip side of it is a lot of the tools that I've seen so far, maybe not yours, tend to not be very quality followers. Yeah.
So one question is like, is it possible to get hold of your slides?
Oh yeah, I'll have Helena send them out.
And then my second question was like, some people have told me that the best strategy is to go like as high up in an organization that you can get to. So any thoughts on like what's in your experience, what's a good strategy, like start from the top or but at grassroots level and then try to build up?
I think it's really about who you're trying to target. I mean, I would say for, I'm walk over here. Sure. I would say for Cloudera, for example, we over-indexed on the buyer persona. We should have kept focusing to a larger extent the technical decision maker because we had a data platform and then we bought another company that brought us basically an SDK for machine learning. So like we can go talk about pie in the sky, visionary, and how many great things are going to happen with this technology. But the people really, the grassroots are so important because if I could have lined up like 10 data scientists in one organization who are then, you know, talking about these great things they built to the director level, and then the director level is telling the C-level, I mean, you've made major change. Because the C-level, most of what they're working on especially in the concepts of leadership today, you want to hire somebody smarter than you, right? You want somebody underneath you who knows exactly what they're doing to a higher degree than you do. Because most of us, especially the older we get, a lot of people are working on old data, old information. So those people at the higher level may or may not be best for you. It depends on what they're focused on. If you are solving, though, an issue that they have on a daily basis, let's say I'm a C-level leader, and your product is something that helps CXOs do XYZ better, yes. If, however, your product is a new AI application that automates some process that marketing operations is doing, I want to go there. Yeah.
For B2B marketing, when you have multiple stakeholders, decision makers, and influencers, and it usually takes like 3, 4, 5 months to get it closed in the sale. How do you structure a communications plan to increase the likelihood that you're going to close in the long run?
That's a tough question because all these communications are different.
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. So the question is, what is the content strategy to go close business sooner in the B2B space? Right.
Well, actually, not exactly the content strategy, the relationship strategy.
The relationship strategy. Okay. Maybe a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I think when I think about some of the sales, like I'll call it sales enablement stuff that I've done in my career, the one thing I've done twice, I did it at Intel and I also did it at Cloudera, I created a demo program. So at Intel, it was interesting, we had the ability to do shipping and receiving of server-based hardware. Think of these like, I don't know, 20+ pound boxes, shipping them out, it's a lot of money. But, I closed so many deals with a demo program. Same thing at Cloudera. I had this idea with my partners. I had Click, Tableau, Zoom data, Arcadia data, like all these BI platforms, ETL softwares that ran or used Cloudera software. And I felt it was so strong just having the demo program from a communication perspective. One was having it up on YouTube with annotations that linked to gated pages that created leads. Awesome. I drove pipeline. Cool. And it just lived there on YouTube. The other piece that was really nice was all the salespeople, inside sales as well as account execs. When it came to engaging with customers, they could say, "Oh, hey, do you see this new visualization tool from Click that runs on our software? They have a nice use case that's relevant to the healthcare space. I thought you should check it out." I mean, it's that end, when that chart that I had, that end evaluation stage, that's where I feel like that communication piece of really engaging and having those type of materials that allow you to have those foot in the door conversations is so key. So my mind is, like, unless you know there's a business challenge and you have a really tight piece of collateral or an email, not even collateral, people don't take the time to read PDFs anymore, right? It needs to be very to the point. But then demo videos and video itself is, actually I could talk about that. Lots of salespeople, I mean maybe people in this room, are just using videos of themselves to go talk through email to potential prospects. So that's another great way to reach out to people. Like co-video is one of those solutions in the market. There's a number of them right now where you can just get a video of yourself on your laptop or off your iPhone, save it, embed it into the email, like maybe put one sentence in there, say, "Hey, I checked out your website recently, or I read in the news that you guys had a reduction in force," and you can riff and say, "Look, we have a solution that can help you do these things better." And it's like a super short video and very direct. So I think you need to keep in perspective the content that's going to resonate at the right time, and those are some examples that you can use.
Cool, thanks. And it's called Co-Video?
Co-Video. Yeah, there's Co-Video, but there's a whole range of other ones out there that might be even better.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm building a company with other marketing people, where's the best place to go to find them?
Okay.
Traditional marketers, do I go to shows, or How do I find them?
Sure. So the question is, where do you find good marketers?
Yeah.
Yeah, right here. So yeah, I'm looking, by the way. So if anybody has a hookup. So needing good marketers with experience. I would probably search in LinkedIn. I have a subscription to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I think everybody who owns a business or has a sales guy should be in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's how I've been prospecting people myself. It cost maybe $70 or $80, but it's worth the money because you can snoop on somebody, see their whole LinkedIn page, you can see their experience, you can see their reviews, you can send them messages. I think that from that perspective, there's another good example. Somebody
I
could
would
talk
just
to.
say, try and use your network, try and get a referral recommendation of somebody in your network who's used somebody. I've been in marketing a long time. I've seen a lot of marketing people that are looking how much can they charge you, and they're not necessarily your best interest. I've seen a lot of great ones too. So if you find somebody in your network somebody in your network says, wow, that person was great, that's what I'd go with.
It's great advice.
I would do that first.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then LinkedIn, how else you can.
Yeah. And the good thing about the Sales Navigator, you can search on first or second level connections. So, I mean, that to his point, you can get to all your first level connections who are marketers, and then get that referral. You might have forgotten about somebody, and you can figure that out pretty quick.
Yeah. So what should be the marketing strategy for partners or providers to get onboarded? Like, can they start kind of?
Great question for me. So the question is, how do you onboard partners? So with my side hustle here, the digital marketing agency I have, we created a partner program, and I've done many partner programs in the past, even at Cloudera. The best way to onboard, I mean, obviously you should probably, if you have the time and maybe budget, plan out a partner program. Because again, the Pareto principle applies there as well. Maybe not all partners are a good use of your time. Maybe 20% of them are good, worth onboarding, the other 80% go read the website, right? So think through that methodology first, so that you're using the people, investing in the people that matter most. The other piece is, I think, actively doing marketing with them. I think that I got tremendous value working with Click a couple of years ago. One of the second biggest visual analytics BI companies out there in the market, maybe not so much now with Power BI. But we sat down, it must have taken at least a month just to weed out, this is our core messaging, this is their core messaging, how do we get it to work so then we can go communicate to salespeople who then go talk to end customers. It takes a lot of work, just like the personas. You need to think through what matches and what doesn't. Some things they wanted to say that were like, no, that's a little too, into this part of our business, and likewise. But we eventually came down to the subset that worked. And when it did, it filtered into everything else we did. So it could have been a solution brief, an ebook, and even videos and demo videos. So those are my suggestions. Yeah. Yeah.
So we recently run a Facebook, Instagram ads. When it's time for us to analyze the result, Facebook has to give you a ton of information. And you can have build a spreadsheet, like a CSV data. You can pick the column, pick the row. So seems a very manual, labor intensive, to really figure out what's going on, what's my optimum audience, and all that stuff. Is there a shortcut to that, or you just have
Great question. Last week I was working in Google Data Studio. I'm pulling together data for my customer. In Google Data Studio, if you use that as a tool to visualize these results, they have APIs, but I found some of these APIs, especially for Facebook, don't work well. The workaround I have is one that I found online, which is load the data into Google Sheets, and then from Google Sheets, the Google Data Studio would load it in for Facebook. And I would just select the columns that mattered most to communicate to my customer. And that wasn't so time consuming, and then it just would be a monthly process of downloading the data, copy paste to the Google Sheet that you currently have, and then reconnecting. For Instagram, I haven't done that yet. But for Google Ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, those all work pretty well with Google Data Studio.
So you export it to Google.
A Google Sheet.
Is that the Google, just the standard Google Excel sheets, right?
Yeah, Google Excel, yeah, Google Sheet, Excel, like their version of Excel. The APIs obviously work perfectly for the Google products. So they actually have a template in there in Google Data Studio that's optimized for Google Ads, which is great. I didn't have to do anything. But yeah, the Facebook stuff's a little hard. Yeah, obviously you could use other visualization tools, but Google Data Studio is pretty handy because it's almost like it's a living dashboard. I just pick the monthly or quarterly, whatever I want to do, hit refresh, it's all there.
My name is Chris, and I'm the co-founder of Upple, which is a design outsourcing marketplace. But my question was, what kind of advice would you give to startups that's just about to launch a minimal viable product to acquire potential customers? I know you talked about briefly during your talk, but if you can just elaborate on it.
Sure. So the question is, for a startup, for just about to launch the minimum viable product,
Right.
how do you get followers? How do you build awareness? Great question. I think there's one was go create a landing page with an ebook that gives value. Start really promote things like these landing pages to try and start building some initial lists of potential contacts or leads. I'm more along the lines of a more personalized engagement with the right personas is the best strategy. Less is more. If you have the budget to do it, you have the finances to support such a strategy. I think handshaking and getting personal with your first initial set of customers is probably the best first step. You can still do everything that I talked about. Is you've defined the personas and you're using social media, email marketing, inbound, outbound marketing strategies. But I think focusing on a very tight set of people who can become those initial reviews that can really highlight and want to talk about your product is probably the best use of time in the short term. And then once you get into the longer term, get a year in, you start seeing success, that's when you start shouting from the rooftop all those reviews and referencing them not only in your website, but integrating them into your other marketing strategies.
I believe most of the entrepreneurs who are kind of starting, they try to define their own personas based on their knowledge. What is your take on engaging a marketing person to help them really define those personas before they go too far in those stages?
Help me understand that a little bit better, your question.
So if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trying to define my customer base or the persona, right?
Yeah.
I may not be very good at it in terms of the terminology, and how you
Got
look
it.
at it will be different from the way I look at it. So what is the best way to engage somebody who is a professional in marketing so that I'm focusing on the right things or right market segments of the customers?
So the question is, how do you define the personas, the entrepreneur or business owner versus a marketer, correct? How they would go about creating those persona profiles?
No, it's slightly different.
Okay.
So if I have an idea of the personas as an entrepreneur that I'm trying to sell my product to,
Yeah.
I wanted to engage a marketing professional to kind of help me define those things.
Okay.
So how do I go over it?
Well, I think it's a similar question to what he asked earlier, is how do you find the right marketer? And I think you need to obviously work your network, and like I said earlier, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a good tool to, if you can't find a marketer to refer you to, you can talk to me afterwards. You need to get in contact with somebody who's done it before or truly understands the process. It's not rocket science. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not building a new API here, but we are collecting demographic details on certain people of a certain age, of a certain ethnicity or region or whatever, so that because we know that those people are our core customers or influencers. So yeah, I mean, I think you just need to find the right marketer who understands how to build larger campaigns that are experienced in campaigns, because right now there's a lot of marketers out there that may be solely focused on social media or solely focused on email marketing, and they're very, very much experts in those different areas, but they may not know enough to be able to build an integrated strategy.
And just one tangent of that, I think it brings up what's really important as an entrepreneur to get other perspectives, to make sure you're communicating with your target audiences, to listen to what they say. What I see a lot is entrepreneurs, you so much love your product or your service and it's the greatest and everybody's going to buy this, that you get blinded to, hang on a second, you need somebody, especially from your target market who you're trying to reach, but also other marketing professionals, whomever, to just reality check you, ask you some tough questions, make sure you can convince them, why is this of value? So kind of along the same lines.
I agree. Yeah, good advice. Okay.
Along that topic is, how would you go about evaluating a good marketer? So like for an engineer, we could put someone on a whiteboard for like 5 hours doing plenty of coding. What's the equivalent of that for when you're interviewing a marketing expert?
So the question is, how do you interview a marketing expert?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you need to define the role, right? So understand what you're going to be asking for them to do, right? Is it just to do social media, just email, or is it to do the whole thing? So I think if you are interviewing them and you don't have a marketing background, to his earlier point, I would suggest you try and bring somebody into the conversation or into the interview process who has some degree of knowledge on marketing. Because, like I said earlier, I had 2-level managers, CMOs, not a clue about social media, and we're in 2019. Like, come on, man, like this is a marketing channel. But then, probably great in other areas. So it depends on what you're trying to solve for. If you're looking for somebody who's well-rounded, you need to make sure that they understand field marketing, because most likely as a new entrepreneur, you're going to be doing field events at conferences. You need somebody who understands demand generation, how to do the email piece, because email is one of the best ways to still engage people online. Probably to this day and age, social media. You need understanding of both the inbound process that pulls from all these things to create leads, as well as potentially the outbound. If you have salespeople who will be calling out, what is it that you want them to say? So you need somebody who has a good understanding of the breadth of marketing, but then you may need to over-index in one given area, because no one person can be an expert in everything. So I don't know if I answered your question.
More or less.
Okay, good. Thanks. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Really good presentation, Mike.
Thank you, everyone. I will send the slides to everyone on the list. We will have another event in May. It's going to be about fundraising and the analytics that you need to know while fundraising. I'll make sure to send you the invite. Have a great rest of your evening and feel free to network. Thank you.